I found the recording 3 weeks after my wedding. Not hidden, not encrypted. Just sitting there in a shared cloud folder labeled Prague 2019. A folder I'd created myself, filled with photos from the bachelor trip that was supposed to be the greatest weekend of my life. I'd been looking for a specific photo to frame for my new home office when I saw the file. audio_note_final.m4a, 23 minutes long, uploaded by Jake Moreno, my best man, my business partner, my brother, in everything but blood for 15 years. I should have known something was wrong when he didn't show up to help me move into the new house. Jake was always there, every single time. When I got my first apartment at 22, when I moved in with Rebecca 4 years ago, when I bought the fixer-upper in Ashland last year, he was there, boxes in hand, making terrible jokes about my taste in furniture. But this time, silence. 3 unanswered texts. A voicemail that went straight to some excuse about a client emergency. The recording started with laughter. His laughter, then her voice. Balj, I'm not going to tell you what I heard in those first 30 seconds. Not yet, because if I do, you'll understand why I sat in my car in the grocery store parking lot for 2 hours. Phone clutched in my shaking hand, while my wife of 3 weeks, sent increasingly worried messages asking where I was with the milk and eggs. Some moments crack you open so completely that you can actually feel the before and after versions of yourself splitting apart. This was mine. My name is Connor Walsh, and I'm a forensic data analyst. I find hidden things for a living, deleted emails, scrubbed hard drives, digital footprints. People thought they'd erased forever. I've helped law firms win cases worth millions. I've helped corporations uncover industrial espionage. I've testified as an expert witness in federal court. But I never thought I'd use those skills to excavate the ruins of my own life. Jake and I met the first week of college at Oregon State. I was this awkward kid from a small town near Eugene, wearing a Free Software Foundation t-shirt and carrying a laptop held together with duct tape. He was from Portland, effortlessly cool, the kind of guy who knew everyone's name by the second day. We got randomly assigned as roommates, and by all logic, we should have hated each other. Instead, we stayed up until 4 in the morning that first night talking about everything. Music, philosophy, our families, our dreams. He wanted to build something that mattered. I wanted to understand how systems worked, how to find truth in data. By the time the sun came up, we'd ordered pizza, hacked the dorm's Wi-Fi to get better speeds, and started planning a business we had no idea how to actually run. We were 20 years old and stupid and convinced we were going to change the world. After graduation, we made it happen. Moreno Walsh Digital Forensics, the name alone felt like victory, proof that 2 kids with more ambition than sense could build something real. I handled the technical work, the deep dives into data, the careful reconstruction of digital timelines. Jake handled the clients, the business development, the charm that got us indoors I could never open alone. We were good together, better than good. In 7 years, we built a client list that included 3 Fortune 500 companies and 2 major law firms. We had a lease on a beautiful office in downtown Portland with exposed brick and floor-to-ceiling windows. We had a staff of 6. We had revenue that let us both buy houses before we turned 30. More than that, we had trust, complete, unquestioning trust. I'd given Jake sign-in authority on our business accounts. He was the beneficiary on my life insurance. We'd talked, half seriously, about buying a cabin together in the Cascades as a shared investment. Our lives were interwoven in 1,000 ways, and I'd never once questioned it. Rebecca came into my life 3 years ago at a tech conference in Seattle. She was a UX designer, brilliant and beautiful, with this laugh that made everyone around her smile. We started dating long distance, her in Seattle, me in Portland, and it was hard, but it worked. When she got an offer from a Portland agency 18 months later, it felt like fate. Jake loved her immediately, or at least that's what I thought. He was always inviting us both out, always making sure she felt included in our friend group, always asking how she was doing. When I told him I was going to propose, he insisted on helping me plan it. He knew a guy who could get us a private rooftop reservation at Rebecca's favorite restaurant. He helped me pick out the ring, sitting with me for 3 hours at the jewelry store, giving his honest opinion on every option. "This one," he'd said finally, pointing to a platinum band with a single perfect diamond. "It's elegant, classic, like her." She said yes. Of course she said yes, and Jake was there at the celebration dinner raising a toast, his eyes a little wet as he talked about how happy he was for us both, how he couldn't wait to see what our future held. I remember that moment so clearly now, the way his voice caught, the way he looked at Rebecca just a beat too long before looking back at me, the way she smiled at him, warm, genuine, friendly. I remember it because I've replayed it 10,000 times since finding that recording, searching for the truth I missed. The bachelor party was Jake's idea. Prague, he'd said. Somewhere we'd never been, somewhere legendary for a last hurrah before married life. He'd organize everything, flights, hotels, activities. All I had to do was show up. There were 8 of us, me, Jake, and 6 other guys from our college days and our current friend circle. We spent 3 days drinking exceptional beer, eating incredible food, wandering medieval streets, laughing until our faces hurt. I remember thinking that this was perfect, that I was the luckiest man alive to have friends like this, a woman like Rebecca waiting for me at home, a life like mine. On the last night, we ended up at this bar built into old stone cellars, all vaulted ceilings and candlelight. Everyone was drunk except me. I'd been pacing myself, not wanting to be destroyed for the flight home. Around midnight, Jake pulled me aside. "I need to tell you something," he said. His face was flushed from alcohol, but his eyes were serious. "What's up?" He hesitated, then shook his head. "No, not tonight. After the wedding? We'll talk after the wedding." "Come on, man, you can't do that. What is it?" "It's nothing bad," he said quickly. Just something I've been thinking about for the business, but it can wait. Tonight's about you." I didn't push it. I should have, but I didn't. We went back to the group, did another round of shots, sang terribly to American songs on the bar's ancient jukebox. When we stumbled back to the hotel at 3 in the morning, I felt nothing but love for these people, for this life. I had no idea that Jake had excused himself from the group twice that night to make phone calls. I had no idea he'd been texting someone constantly. I had no idea that the something he needed to tell me would detonate my entire existence. The wedding was perfect. Rebecca looked like something out of a dream in her dress. My parents cried. Her parents cried. Jake gave a best man speech that had everyone laughing and crying in equal measure, talking about our friendship, about how seeing me find someone like Rebecca gave him hope that everyone could find their person. "Connor's the best man I know," he'd said, voice thick with emotion. "And Rebecca, you're the best thing that ever happened to him. Take care of each other, that's all that matters." The applause was thunderous. Rebecca squeezed my hand. I wiped my eyes and pulled Jake into a hug as he sat down. "Love you, brother," I whispered. "Love you too," he whispered back. 3 weeks later, I found the recording. I sat in that parking lot and listened to the whole thing, all 23 minutes. Then I listened to it again. And again. It was a voice note Jake had made for himself, apparently planning to delete it later, but forgetting it was set to auto-upload to our shared cloud. The kind of mistake that seems impossible for someone as meticulous as Jake, but grief and guilt make people sloppy. The recording started in what I now know was his car, probably in his driveway. He was talking to himself, his voice ragged. "I can't do this anymore. I can't stand at his wedding and smile and pretend everything's fine when I—" A long pause. Heavy breathing. "When I'm in love with his fiancée." My world ended right there, in the first minute. But it got worse. He talked about how it started, 6 months ago. A project Rebecca had been struggling with at work. She'd mentioned it at a group dinner, and Jake had offered to look at it, said he had some UX friends who might have insights. They'd met for coffee to discuss it, then another coffee, then drinks. "I knew it was wrong," his voice said through my phone speaker, shaking. "I knew it was crossing a line, but she was so— God, Connor, she's everything, and I kept telling myself it was just friendship, just being a good friend to my best friend's girl. But I was lying to myself. I was falling for her, and I think she was falling for me too." He described stolen moments, texts that went on too long. A night when they'd both stayed late at a networking event and ended up talking in his car for 2 hours. The way she'd looked at him, the way he'd almost kissed her but stopped himself. "Nothing happened," he kept saying, over and over. "Nothing physical happened, but everything else did. The emotional affair, or whatever you call it. I am in love with her, and I think she has feelings for me too, and Connor's about to marry her. And I'm standing there as his best man, and I am the worst person alive." There was more, so much more. But what broke me wasn't the confession itself, it was what came next. "I thought she'd call it off," he said, his voice cracking. "I thought she'd realize she couldn't marry him if she felt anything for me. But she chose him. Of course she chose him. He's good and stable, and he'll give her the life she wants. And I'm just the friend. I'm always just the friend." A long silence, filled only with his breathing. "So I'll bury it, I'll show up, I'll smile, I'll give the speech, and then I'll figure out how to live with this." The recording ended there. I sat in my car as the sun set, watching people come and go from the grocery store, living their normal lives, while mine disintegrated. When I finally got home, Rebecca was cooking dinner. She looked up with concern. "Babe, are you okay? You were gone for hours. I was worried." I looked at her, really looked at her. My wife. The woman I'd pledged my life to 3 weeks ago, searching her face for signs of the truth. "I'm fine," I heard myself say. "Sorry, got caught up on a work call." The lie came so easily, too easily. "That's okay," she said, coming over to kiss my cheek. Dinner's almost ready. How about you open some wine? I did. We ate. We talked about our days. She told me about a new project at work. I told her about a case I was consulting on. We did the dishes together, watched an episode of the show we were binging, went to bed. She fell asleep with her head on my chest the way she always did. I stared at the ceiling, listening to her breathe, my mind a hurricane. Part of me wanted to wake her up and demand the truth. Part of me wanted to call Jake immediately and destroy him. Part of me wanted to pretend I'd never heard the recording, to delete it and go on living my life. But I'm an analyst. Finding truth is what I do. And I knew with absolute certainty that I couldn't move forward without knowing the full story. So I began to investigate. The thing about digital forensics is that people vastly underestimate how much of their lives leave trails. Every text message, every email, every app interaction, every location ping, it all creates data. And if you know how to look, you can reconstruct entire narratives from those fragments. I started with the shared phone plan. Rebecca and I had merged our accounts after we got engaged, which gave me access to line usage details. I pulled the records going back a year. The pattern was immediately obvious. Starting about 7 months ago, there was a dramatic increase in texts between Rebecca's number and Jake's. Before that, they'd texted maybe once or twice a week, normal for two people who hung out in a friend group. But beginning in early March, it jumped to dozens per day, sometimes hundreds. The calls started in April, long calls, often late at night, 47 minutes, an hour and 12 minutes, 2 hours and 6 minutes. I cross-referenced the dates with my own calendar. The 2-hour call happened on a night I'd been out of town for a client deposition. The long texts during a weekend I'd gone home to visit my parents. They were finding times when I wasn't around. My hands were shaking as I documented everything in a spreadsheet. I felt sick, but I kept going. Next, I checked location data. Rebecca had enabled location sharing with me through Google Maps months ago, back when she was commuting from Seattle and wanted me to know she'd arrived safely. She'd never turned it off. I pulled her timeline history. There it was. Coffee shops I knew she didn't frequent, restaurants in neighborhoods she had no reason to be in, all correlating with gaps in our schedules, and 3 times, 3 separate occasions, her location showed her at Jake's house. Once for 4 hours on a Saturday afternoon when she'd told me she was at a design workshop. Once for 6 hours on an evening I'd been working late. Once for 2 hours when she'd said she was having drinks with her co-worker, Sarah. I pulled Jake's location data from our business account. He was there too, every time. Of course he was. I ran the data through timeline reconstruction software, the same tools I used for court cases. I built a complete picture of their interaction pattern over the last 7 months. The evidence was overwhelming, but I still didn't know the most important thing. Had they slept together? I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. I went through the motions of my life like a ghost. Rebecca noticed something was wrong, kept asking if I was okay, if we were okay. I kept lying. I told her I was stressed about a difficult case. She believed me because she had no reason not to, because I'd always been honest with her before. Jake texted me a few times, normal stuff, asking about getting together for our usual Thursday basketball game, asking if I'd had a chance to review some contracts for a new client. Each message felt like broken glass. I didn't respond. I claimed I was swamped with work. 2 weeks after finding the recording, I made a decision. I needed more information, and I was going to get it the way I always did, through data. Rebecca's laptop was a personal device, but she often left it open at home. I knew her password because she'd given it to me freely months ago when she'd asked me to check her email while her hands were messy from cooking. Normal couple stuff, trusting couple stuff. I waited until she was in the shower one morning, cloned her hard drive to an external SSD. It took 9 minutes. By the time she came out, I was in the kitchen making coffee. That night, while she slept, I analyzed everything. Her emails told me things the voice memo hadn't. I found messages between her and Jake going back 8 months. They'd started innocuously enough, him sending her a link to an article about UX design, her thanking him asking for her opinion on a website redesign for the business, her offering feedback. But by late April, the tone shifted. The emails got longer, more personal. He was confiding in her about feeling stuck in his personal life. She was sharing frustrations about work, about feeling undervalued at her agency. They were giving each other emotional support, building intimacy. In early May, I found the first email that made my stomach drop. From Rebecca to Jake. I can't stop thinking about our conversation last night. You were right, I've been playing it too safe, both professionally and personally. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with that realization, but thank you for helping me see it. From Jake to Rebecca. You're capable of so much more than you let yourself believe. I see it in you. I wish you could see it too. The emails continued, getting progressively more intimate. They talked about their dreams, their fears, their disappointments. She told him things I didn't know, that she was worried she wasn't creative enough, that she sometimes felt like she was settling in her career. He told her about feeling like he was always performing, always being the guy everyone expected him to be, never feeling truly known. They were building an emotional connection, a deep one. Exactly what Jake had described in his recording. In June, I found an email that stopped me cold. From Rebecca to Jake. Last night was a mistake, a beautiful mistake, but still a mistake. I'm marrying Connor in 6 weeks. We can't do this, whatever this is. From Jake to Rebecca. I know, you're right, I'm sorry. Being around you makes me feel more alive than I've felt in years. But Connor is my best friend, and you're going to be his wife, and I'll learn to live with that. I have to. From Rebecca to Jake. I'll figure out how to live with it too, but Jake, I need you to know that if circumstances were different, if I'd met you first... God, I don't even know what I'm saying. Please forget I said anything. From Jake to Rebecca. I could never forget, but I'll pretend to, for Connor's sake, for all our sakes. I read those emails 15 times, trying to parse exactly what last night meant, what the beautiful mistake was. The words could mean they'd kissed, could mean they'd slept together, could mean they'd just had an intensely emotional conversation that crossed lines. I didn't know, and not knowing was torture. I kept digging. I found her text messages next. I pulled a backup from her cloud storage that included her iMessage history. The texts with Jake were extensive, thousands of messages. Most were mundane, logistics, jokes, shared memes. But scattered throughout were messages that cut deep. Jake, seeing you today reminded me of everything I can't have. Rebecca, please don't make this harder than it already is. Jake, I'm sorry, I'll be better. I'll be the friend I'm supposed to be. Another exchange from a week before the wedding. Rebecca. I'm scared. Jake. Of what, Rebecca? That I'm making the wrong choice, that I'm going to spend my whole life wondering what if. Jake. Connor loves you. He'll give you a good life. That's not wrong. Rebecca. But is it right? Jake. I can't answer that for you. Rebecca. I know, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said anything. Jake. It's okay, I'm always here if you need to talk. I wanted to scream. I wanted to put my fist through the wall. Instead, I saved everything to an encrypted drive and documented it all with the same meticulous care I used for court cases, timestamps, context, cross-references. I was building a case against my wife, against my best friend, against my entire life. 3 weeks after finding the recording, I finally found what I was looking for, and what I was dreading. Buried in a folder on Rebecca's laptop, labeled Old Projects, was a subfolder called archive_misc. Inside that was a document titled meeting_notes_may.docx. It wasn't meeting notes. It was a journal entry. I slept with Jake last night. I don't even know how it happened. 1 minute we were talking in his car after the networking event, and the next we were at his place, and then we were in his bed, and I couldn't stop it. I didn't want to stop it. I told Connor I stayed at Sarah's because the networking event ran late and I'd had too much to drink. He believed me. He always believes me because I've never given him a reason not to. I feel like the worst person alive. Jake feels even worse, I think. When I left his place this morning, he looked destroyed. We both know this can't happen again. We both know it was wrong. But God help me, I don't regret it. I know I should, but I don't. Connor is good. He's stable and kind, and he loves me completely. We have a good life planned, a good future. Everything makes sense with him. But Jake makes me feel alive in ways I didn't know I could feel. When I'm with him, I'm not the together professional woman I've worked so hard to become. I'm just me, raw and messy and uncertain. And he sees all of that and wants me anyway. I don't know what to do. The wedding is in 5 weeks. Everyone's counting on me to show up and marry Connor and start our life together. My parents have already spent a fortune. The invitations are out. The dress is altered. And I love Connor. I do. Just maybe not the way I thought I did. I have to figure this out. I have to make a choice. And then I have to live with it. There were more entries after that. Her wrestling with her guilt. Her deciding to go through with the wedding because it was the right thing to do. Her convincing herself that what she felt for Jake was just cold feet, just pre-wedding jitters, just a temporary madness that would fade once she was married and settled into her new life. The last entry was from 2 days before our wedding. I'm marrying Connor tomorrow. Jake sent me a text saying he supports my decision and he'll always be my friend. He said he's happy for us. He's lying and we both know it, but it's the lie we need right now. I'm going to be a good wife. I'm going to build a good life. I'm going to forget this ever happened. I have to. I didn't sleep for 3 days after reading those journal entries. I couldn't eat. I lost 8 pounds in a week. Rebecca was getting seriously worried, talking about making me a doctor's appointment. I told her I had a stomach bug. The lies were getting easier. I had all the evidence I needed. She'd slept with Jake, once at least, maybe more. She'd married me anyway, knowing she had feelings for him, knowing it was unresolved. And Jake had stood next to me at my wedding, knowing the same thing, and smiled and gave his speech about finding your person. They'd both betrayed me in the deepest way possible. Part of me wanted to confront them immediately, to throw the evidence in their faces and watch them crumble, to scream and rage and burn it all down. But I didn't, because I'm a forensic analyst. And I know that the most devastating cases aren't won with emotion. They're won with patience, precision, and perfect timing. If I was going to destroy them, I was going to do it right. I spent the next 2 weeks planning. First, I needed to protect myself legally and financially. I met with a divorce attorney, not someone local, but a specialist in Portland I found through research. I laid out everything I'd discovered: the emails, the texts, the journal entries, the timeline. "This is airtight," she said, reviewing the evidence. Oregon is a no-fault divorce state, but infidelity can still affect division of assets, especially given how recent your marriage is. And if you want to pursue this strategically, there are ways to ensure you come out of this protected. We discussed options. I could file for an annulment based on fraud. She'd entered the marriage with undisclosed feelings for someone else and a recent sexual relationship she'd concealed. I could file for divorce and use the evidence to argue for a favorable settlement. I could do nothing and try marriage counseling, though the attorney was skeptical that would work given the depth of the betrayal. "What do you want?" she asked me finally. "I want them to understand what they've done," I said. "I want consequences that match the betrayal." "That's not really how the legal system works," she said gently. "Divorce is about dividing assets and moving on. It's not designed for revenge." "Then I'll design my own revenge," I said. She gave me a long look. "Be careful. Don't do anything that could be used against you later." I assured her I wouldn't. But I also didn't tell her what I was really planning. The business was the key. Moreno Walsh Digital Forensics wasn't just our livelihood. It was Jake's identity. He'd built his entire self-image around being a successful entrepreneur, around the company we'd created together. Our clients knew him as the face of the business. His social media was full of posts about our work, our growth, our success. And legally, I had options. We'd structured the business as a partnership with specific clauses in our operating agreement. One of those clauses stated that if either partner engaged in behavior that materially damaged the reputation or operations of the business, the other partner could buy them out at a predetermined formula based on revenue. The clause was Jake's idea, actually. He'd insisted on it years ago after hearing a horror story about a business partnership that fell apart when one partner got caught embezzling. We'd both signed it, never thinking it would actually matter. Infidelity with a partner's spouse wasn't explicitly listed in the clause, but behavior that damages the reputation of the business was broad enough to cover it, especially in our industry where trust and ethics were everything. I started gathering additional evidence, not just of the affair, but of how Jake had used business resources to facilitate it. He'd taken Rebecca to lunch and expensed it as a client meeting. He'd used our company car for some of their meetups. He'd scheduled personal calls with her during work hours, logged in our time tracking system as client calls. None of it was major financial fraud, but it established a pattern. He'd been willing to lie and bend ethical rules to pursue his relationship with my fiancée. That was exactly the kind of behavior that could damage client trust if it became known. I documented everything with the same precision I used for expert witness testimony. Date, time, amount, context. I built an irrefutable case. Then I turned my attention to Rebecca. She worked at a design agency called Meridian Creative, mid-sized, about 40 employees, with a strong reputation in the Portland market. I'd met her boss, Diane, several times. Sharp woman, principled, the kind of person who cared deeply about her company culture. I did some research into Meridian's employee policies. They had a strict ethics code, no romantic relationships with clients or vendors without disclosure to HR. The policy was designed to prevent conflicts of interest. Jake and I had worked with Meridian on a project about a year ago. They'd hired us to do some digital forensics work for a client lawsuit. It was a small project, only about 15,000 in revenue, but it established a vendor relationship, which meant Rebecca's undisclosed romantic involvement with Jake was technically a violation of her company's ethics policy. I had all the evidence I needed to prove the relationship. Timeline, communications, everything. If I sent it to Diane with the right framing, it would at minimum trigger an HR investigation. At worst, it could cost Rebecca her job. Was it petty? Maybe. Was it deserved? I thought so. But I didn't act on it yet. I was still building my plan, making sure every piece was in place. 4 weeks after finding the recording, I finally made contact with Jake. "Hey man," I texted him. "I know I've been MIA. This case has been brutal, but I miss you. Want to grab dinner this week?" He responded within minutes. "Absolutely, I've been worried about you. Thursday night?" "Perfect." We met at a steakhouse we'd been going to for years, our spot. When I walked in, Jake was already there, standing to give me a hug. "Connor, God, it's good to see you. You look like shit, though. Are you okay?" I slid into the booth across from him. "Yeah, just work stress. This case is a monster." We ordered drinks. We talked about business. We had a big client presentation coming up, some operational decisions to make. Jake seemed normal, maybe a little more animated than usual, like he was trying too hard to seem casual. I watched him carefully, this man I'd trusted with everything, looking for signs of guilt, of remorse, of anything real. "How's married life?" he asked eventually, after our food arrived. "It's good," I said. "Really good. Rebecca's amazing." Something flickered across his face, so fast I almost missed it. Pain, maybe, or envy. "I'm glad," he said. "You both deserve to be happy." "Do we?" I asked. He looked up sharply. "What? Do we deserve to be happy? I've been thinking about that a lot lately, about what people deserve versus what they get." "That's dark, man. Are you sure you're okay?" I took a sip of my whiskey. I found something recently. Something that made me question everything I thought I knew about the people in my life. His face went pale. "What do you mean?" I could have told him then, could have laid it all out and watched him squirm, but I didn't. "Just this case I'm working on," I said, letting him off the hook. Guy thought he knew his business partner. Turns out the partner was stealing from him for years. Made me paranoid, made me wonder if I really know the people I trust. Jake relaxed slightly. "Connor, you can trust me. You know that, right? We're brothers." "Are we?" "Of course we are. Always have been, always will be." I nodded slowly. "Good to know." We finished dinner. I paid the bill. My treat, I insisted. We hugged goodbye in the parking lot. "Love you, man," Jake said. "Love you too," I replied. I watched him drive away, then sat in my car and added notes to my documentation. His reactions, his words, his lies. Everything was almost ready. The next week, I had lunch with Rebecca's co-worker, Sarah. I'd met her several times at company events, and she'd always seemed sharp and observant. "Thanks for meeting me," I said, as we settled into a coffee shop in downtown Portland. "I wanted to get your advice on something." "Of course, what's up?" "I'm planning a surprise for Rebecca, an anniversary thing even though we just got married." I smiled. "I'm thinking about putting together a video montage of messages from important people in her life. Would you be willing to record something?" "Oh, that's so sweet. Yeah, absolutely." "Great. While I have you, though, I want to make sure I'm understanding her work situation correctly. She mentioned that things have been stressful at Meridian lately." Sarah nodded. "Yeah, there's been some tension, budget cuts, some layoffs in other departments. Everyone's on edge about whether design is next." "That must be hard. Has she seemed okay to you? I know she doesn't always tell me when she's stressed." Sarah hesitated. "Honestly, she seemed distracted the last few months, not herself. I figured it was just wedding stress, but even after you guys got married, she still seems, I don't know, distant. Has she mentioned anything specific? Anything I should be worried about?" "Not really. Although," she paused, seemed to wrestle with something. "There was this weird thing a few months ago. We were supposed to have drinks after work, but she cancelled last minute. Said something came up. But then I saw her car in the parking lot of that wine bar on Burnside, you know, the nice one. And when I texted her to see if she was there, she said she'd gone straight home. It was weird." I filed that information away. Another lie, another piece of the puzzle. "I'm sure it was nothing," I said casually. "She's been so busy." We chatted a bit more, then parted ways. I hadn't learned anything earth-shattering, but I'd confirmed that other people had noticed Rebecca's distraction. That would be useful later. 6 weeks after finding the recording, I made my move. I scheduled a formal meeting with Jake at our office. Just us, 9 a.m. on a Monday. I told him we needed to discuss the operating agreement, some updates I wanted to propose. He showed up relaxed, coffee in hand, ready to talk business. I had printed out everything: emails, texts, timeline analysis, expense reports, the journal entries, the voice memo transcript, everything organized in a binder with tabs and annotations. "Before we talk about the operating agreement," I said, "I need to discuss something else." "Okay." I slid the binder across the conference table. "What's this?" "Open it." He did. I watched his face as he started reading, watched the color drain, watched his hands start to shake. "Connor, don't talk yet. Read all of it first." He paged through slowly, his breathing getting faster. When he reached the journal entries, he made a sound like he'd been punched. "Connor, I can explain. I said don't talk yet." It took him 20 minutes to go through everything. By the end, he looked like he was going to be sick. "How long have you known?" he asked finally, his voice barely a whisper. 6 weeks. 6 weeks? And you didn't say anything?" "I've been gathering evidence, making sure I had the complete picture. I'm very thorough, Jake. You know that." "Connor, please, let me explain." "No need. You already explained everything in your voice memo, the one you accidentally uploaded to our shared cloud. That's what started this whole investigation. He put his head in his hands. Oh, God, I'm so sorry. I never meant. You never meant for me to find out. That's what you never meant. But you absolutely meant to pursue my fiancée. You absolutely meant to sleep with her. You absolutely meant to stand up at my wedding and give a speech about love and loyalty while knowing what you'd done. It was one time, he said desperately. One mistake. And nothing happened after that. We both agreed. You both agreed to lie to me forever. You both agreed to let me marry her without knowing the truth. You both agreed to let me build a life on a foundation of bullshit. I love her, he said, tears streaming down his face now. I'm in love with her. I have been for months, but she chose you, and I was trying to respect that by lying to me every single day. By being my best man, by being my business partner, that's respect. No, you're right, it's not. It's cowardly and selfish, and I hate myself for it. He looked up at me, his face destroyed. Are you going to tell Rebecca you know? Already planning to. Tonight, actually. I wanted to deal with you first. Connor, please, don't throw away your marriage because of my mistake. Your mistake? She slept with you, Jake. She lied to me. She married me, knowing she had feelings for you. This isn't just your mistake. She loves you, he insisted. She chose you. That has to mean something. It means she's a coward too. It means you're both cowards who are willing to destroy me to avoid difficult conversations. I pulled out another document. Our operating agreement, with the relevant section highlighted. Per Section 7.3 of our partnership agreement, behavior that materially damages the reputation of the business constitutes grounds for buyout. I'm exercising that clause. I'm buying you out. His eyes went wide. You can't. I can, and I am. You used company resources to facilitate an affair with my fiancée. You've created a conflict of interest that could damage client relationships if it became known. You've violated the ethical standards we promised to uphold. It's all in the documentation. Connor, this business is my life. It was my life too, past tense, because you destroyed it. Please, he begged. We can work through this. We can figure something out. I've already talked to an attorney. The buyout formula is clear. Based on our revenue, I'll owe you about $240,000. I've secured financing. You'll have the money in 30 days, and you'll sign over all ownership rights. And if I refuse, then I'll file a lawsuit, and all of this evidence becomes part of the public record. Our clients will see it. Your family will see it. Everyone you know will see exactly what kind of person you are. Is that what you want? He slumped in his chair, defeated. No. Good. My attorney will send you the paperwork tomorrow. You have 72 hours to sign it, or the offer's withdrawn and I go public. I stood up, gathering my materials. Connor, he said, his voice broken. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I know you are. You're sorry you got caught. You're sorry there are consequences, but you're not sorry you did it. If you were, you would have told me the truth before I had to find it myself. I walked toward the door. We were brothers, he called after me. I stopped, turned back. No, brothers don't do this to each other. I don't know what we were, but we were never brothers. I left him there in the conference room and went back to my office, closed the door. And finally, after 6 weeks of holding it together, I let myself fall apart. I went home that night knowing it was the last night of my marriage. Rebecca was in the kitchen when I arrived, cooking dinner. like she did most nights. She looked up and smiled. "Hey, babe, how was your day?" "We need to talk," I said. Her smile faded. "That sounds ominous. What's wrong?" "Sit down." We sat at the dining room table. I pulled out my phone, opened the folder where I'd saved everything. "I know about you and Jake," I said. Her face went white. "What?" "I know you slept with him. I know about the emotional affair. I know about all of it." "Connor, I don't know what you think you know, but—" "Stop! I have evidence. All of it. Emails, texts, your journal entries, phone records, location data, everything. I'm a forensic analyst, Rebecca. This is literally what I do for a living." She started crying. "Connor, please, when were you going to tell me? Ever? Or were you just going to let me live my whole life not knowing my wife settled for me?" "I didn't settle for you. You wrote that you weren't sure you were making the right choice. That you'd spend your life wondering what if." "That's settling, Rebecca." I was confused, I was scared, but I chose you. You chose the easy option, the safe option, the guy who'd give you a stable life, but you're in love with Jake. "No," she said desperately. "I'm not. I love you. What happened with Jake was a mistake." "A mistake you hid from me. A mistake you let me marry you without knowing about. I didn't want to hurt you." "So you thought lying to me for the rest of our lives would hurt less? Did you think I'd never find out?" She was sobbing now. I thought it didn't matter. I thought what happened with Jake was in the past, and you and I were the future. It does matter. It matters because I deserve to make an informed choice about whether to marry you. You took that choice away from me. "What do you want me to say?" she cried. "That I'm sorry? I'm sorry. I'm so fucking sorry. I want you to pack a bag and leave. Tonight." "Connor, no. Please, we can work through this." "There's nothing to work through. You betrayed me in the worst way possible. You married me under false pretenses. I'm filing for annulment in the morning. You can't throw away our marriage. You already did. I'm just making it official." She reached for my hand. I pulled away. "I love you," she whispered. "No, you don't. You love the life we were supposed to have. You love the idea of me. But you don't love me enough to have been honest with me, and that's the only kind of love that matters." She left that night. "Went to stay with a friend," she said. I didn't ask which one. I sat alone in the house we'd bought together, the house we were supposed to build a life in, and felt nothing. I'd spent 6 weeks living with this knowledge, processing it, planning my response. Now that it was done, I just felt empty. I filed for annulment the next morning. Oregon law allows annulment for fraud, and my attorney was confident we had a strong case. Rebecca had concealed a material fact. Her affair? That would have influenced my decision to marry her. She contested it initially, tried to push for counseling, for mediation. I refused. My attorney presented the evidence, and her attorney advised her to accept the annulment rather than fight it publicly. She signed the papers 3 weeks later. Jake signed the business buyout agreement 2 days after our confrontation. He didn't fight me, didn't try to negotiate. Just signed and disappeared. I heard through mutual friends that he moved to Seattle a month later. Started over somewhere he could pretend to be someone new. I didn't send the information about Rebecca's ethics violation to her boss. In the end, I couldn't do it. The annulment was devastating enough, and destroying her career felt like punching down. But I did send a carefully worded email to a few of our mutual friends. Nothing explicit, nothing angry, just a factual account. Rebecca and Jake had developed an inappropriate relationship before the wedding. I discovered it after we got married. I was filing for annulment and buying Jake out of the business. I didn't have to say more. The implication was clear. The friend group imploded. People took sides. Some thought I was being too harsh, that I should have tried to work through it. Others were furious at Jake and Rebecca for what they'd done. Most just drifted away, uncomfortable with the whole situation. I didn't care. They weren't my friends anymore. They were just people I used to know. 6 months later, I was running the business alone. I'd hired 2 junior analysts to help with the workload and kept the name Moreno Walsh Digital Forensics because changing it would have been more trouble than it was worth. Clients asked about Jake occasionally. I told them he'd moved on to other opportunities. They accepted it. The business was doing fine, better than fine actually. Turned out I didn't need Jake's charm to land clients. Quality work and reputation were enough. My personal life was a different story. I'd started seeing a therapist, Dr. Catherine Morrison, a specialist in trauma and betrayal. She was helping me process everything, helping me understand that what I was feeling was normal. Betrayal trauma is real, she told me in one of our early sessions. What you experienced, simultaneous betrayal from the 2 people closest to you, that's about as devastating as it gets. You're going to have trust issues, you're going to have anger, you're going to question your own judgment. That's all normal. When does it stop feeling like this? I asked. It gets better with time. But you have to do the work. You have to process the anger, grieve what you lost, and eventually find a way to move forward. I was trying. Some days were easier than others. I sold the house, too many memories, too much pain. Moved into a modern condo downtown with big windows and clean lines, a space that was entirely mine, untainted by the past. I threw myself into work, took on bigger cases, more complex investigations, built a reputation as one of the best forensic analysts in the Pacific Northwest. The work was satisfying in a way nothing else was. In data, there were only facts. No lies, no betrayal, just truth, waiting to be uncovered. About 8 months after the annulment, I ran into Rebecca. I was at a coffee shop in the Pearl District waiting for a client meeting. She walked in, saw me, froze. We hadn't spoken since the divorce proceedings. Our lawyers had handled everything. She looked different, thinner, older, tired. "Connor," she said quietly. "Rebecca, how are you?" "I'm fine. You?" "I'm managing." She hesitated. "Do you have a minute?" I checked my watch. My client wasn't due for 20 minutes. "Sure." We sat at a small table by the window. She ordered tea but didn't drink it, just wrapped her hands around the cup. "I wanted to apologize," she said. "I know I did in texts and voicemails, but I wanted to say it to your face. What I did was unforgivable. You deserved so much better." "Yes, I did. I've been in therapy, trying to understand why I did what I did. Why I was so willing to destroy something good. And what did you figure out? That I was a coward. That I was afraid of the intensity of what I felt for Jake. So I chose the safer option with you. And that was cruel to both of us." I nodded slowly. "At least you can admit it now. For what it's worth, I did love you. I do love you." just not the way you deserve to be loved. Are you with him? I asked. Jake? She shook her head. No, we tried actually. About 3 months ago. He reached out, we got dinner. We thought maybe now that everything was out in the open. Let me guess, it didn't work. It was built on guilt and secrecy. Once that was gone, there was nothing there. We were in love with the idea of each other, not the reality. That must have been hard to realize. It was, but it was also clarifying. I burned down my life for something that was never real. You burned down my life too, I reminded her. I know, and I'll regret that until the day I die. She looked at me with tears in her eyes. Do you think you'll ever forgive me? I thought about it. Really thought about it. Maybe someday, I said finally. But not today, and not for a long time. She nodded. That's fair. My phone buzzed. My client was early. I have to go, I said, standing. Connor? She looked up at me. I hope you find someone who deserves you. Someone who'll love you the way you deserve to be loved. I hope so too. I left her there with her untouched tea and her regrets. A year after everything fell apart, I was doing okay. Not great, not healed, but okay. I'd started dating again, nothing serious, just casual dinners and conversations, testing the waters of trust. It was hard. Every time someone showed interest, every time things started to feel real, part of me waited for the betrayal. Waited for the moment when I'd discover it was all a lie. Dr. Morrison said that was normal too, that trust once shattered takes a long time to rebuild. The goal isn't to pretend it never happened, she told me. The goal is to integrate it into your story without letting it define you completely. What happened was real. The pain was real. But so is your capacity to heal and move forward. I was trying to believe her. The business continued to grow. I hired 2 more analysts, moved into a bigger office. Moreno Walsh Digital Forensics was thriving, even without the Moreno. I thought about changing the name, about erasing Jake from the letterhead and the website, but I decided against it. Let his name stay there as a reminder, not of the betrayal, but of what I'd built despite it. 18 months after the annulment, I got a Facebook message from Jake. I almost deleted it without reading it, but curiosity got the better of me. Connor, I know I have no right to contact you. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I need to say something. I'm in therapy. Have been for over a year now. Working through a lot of stuff. Why I did what I did. Why I was willing to destroy the most important friendship of my life for something that wasn't even real. My therapist asked me to write letters to the people I've hurt, to take accountability without expecting forgiveness. This is that letter. What I did was unforgivable. I betrayed you in every way possible. I pursued your fiancée. I slept with her. I stood at your wedding and lied to your face. I let you build a life on a foundation of deception. There's no excuse for any of it. I was selfish and cowardly, and I destroyed something beautiful because I couldn't handle my own feelings like an adult. You were my best friend, my brother, the person I trusted most in the world, and I repaid that trust with the worst betrayal imaginable. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even expect a response. I just needed you to know that I understand what I did. I understand the magnitude of it, and I will carry the weight of it for the rest of my life. You deserved better. You deserved a friend who had your back. I'm sorry I wasn't that person. I hope you're doing well. I hope the business is thriving. I hope you've found happiness. I'm sorry, Connor, for all of it. Jake. I read it 3 times. Then I closed Facebook and didn't respond. What was there to say? He was right. He did betray me. He did destroy our friendship. And knowing he felt bad about it didn't change anything. Maybe someday I'd respond. Maybe someday I'd tell him I'd processed it, moved on, even forgiven him in some abstract way, but not today. 2 years after finding that recording, I met someone. Her name was Olivia. She was a data scientist, brilliant and funny and refreshingly direct. We met at a professional conference, started talking about machine learning applications in fraud detection, and didn't stop talking for 6 hours. She asked me out to dinner. I said yes. On our third date, she asked about my marriage. She'd noticed my Facebook status, said divorced, even though I was only 32. I told her the whole story. Not in excruciating detail, but the broad strokes. My wife had an affair with my best friend. I found out after the wedding. I annulled the marriage and bought him out of our business. She listened without judgment. Then she said something that surprised me. That's devastating. I'm sorry you went through that, but I appreciate you telling me. I'd rather know your baggage up front than discover it later. You're not scared of? Should I be? You were the victim in that situation. Unless you're planning to become a paranoid, controlling nightmare who accuses me of cheating every time I text a male friend, I think we're fine. I laughed, actually laughed. I'll try not to. Good, because I'm really enjoying getting to know you, Connor Walsh, and I'd like to keep doing that. We kept dating, slowly, carefully. I was honest with her about my trust issues, about the therapy, about my tendency to overanalyze things. She was patient, understanding, real. 6 months in, I realized I was falling in love with her. It terrified me. That's growth, Dr. Morrison said when I told her. Being able to be vulnerable again, even though you're scared, that's how you heal. What if it happens again? I asked. What if I trust her and she destroys me? Then you'll survive it, just like you survived it before. But Connor, you can't live your whole life protecting yourself from pain. That's not living. That's just existing. She was right. I knew she was right. 3 years after everything fell apart, I proposed to Olivia. We were hiking in the Columbia River Gorge, just the two of us and the wilderness. When we reached the viewpoint, I got down on one knee. I know I'm damaged, I said. I know I have trust issues and trauma and all kinds of baggage, but you make me believe in love again. You make me believe that not everyone will betray me, and I want to spend my life proving to you that you made the right choice by giving me a chance. She was crying. Connor Walsh, are you asking me to marry you? I am. Then yes, absolutely yes. We got married 6 months later. Small wedding, just close friends and family. No best man, I had 3 groomsmen who shared the duties. No drama, no secrets. Just 2 people who'd found each other and were willing to try. The business continued to thrive. I eventually changed the name to Walsh Digital Forensics. It was time to let go of Jake's ghost. I heard through the grapevine that he'd moved back to Portland, was working for a marketing agency, that he'd started dating someone. I felt nothing about it. No anger, no jealousy, nothing. He was just someone I used to know. Rebecca had moved to California, I'd heard. San Diego started over. Somewhere sunny. I hoped she'd found peace. I even meant it. 5 years after finding that recording, Olivia and I had our first child, a daughter. We named her Claire, holding her in the hospital, looking at this tiny, perfect person who existed because I'd survived the worst betrayal of my life and somehow found my way to happiness anyway. I felt something shift inside me. Forgiveness, maybe, not for Jake or Rebecca, that still felt complicated, but for myself, for the version of me who'd sat in a grocery store parking lot listening to his best friend confessed to loving his fiancée and hadn't fallen apart completely, for the version who'd methodically gathered evidence instead of burning everything down in rage, for the version who'd protected himself legally, financially, emotionally, while still trying to be fair, for the version who'd survived. "You did good," Olivia whispered, watching me hold our daughter. "You built a beautiful life out of the wreckage." "We built a beautiful life," I corrected her. "We did. But you had to survive first. You had to choose to keep going." She was right. I still think about it sometimes, about the life I thought I was going to have with Rebecca, about the friendship I thought I had with Jake, about how completely I'd been deceived. But mostly I think about what I learned. I learned that betrayal doesn't have to destroy you, that you can survive the worst kind of pain and come out stronger. That revenge doesn't have to be dramatic or violent. Sometimes the best revenge is simply protecting yourself, removing toxic people from your life, and building something better. I learned that trust is fragile and precious, and that when someone violates it, they don't deserve access to you anymore. I learned that closure doesn't come from confrontations or apologies or explanations. It comes from within, from deciding that you're done carrying the weight of other people's choices. And I learned that happiness is possible even after devastation. It doesn't look the way you expected. It doesn't erase what happened, but it's real and it's yours, and no one can take it from you. Sometimes, late at night, when Olivia and Claire are asleep, I think about that voice memo, the one that started everything. Jake's voice, broken and desperate, confessing something he never meant me to hear. I deleted it years ago, along with all the other evidence. I don't need it anymore. Don't need proof of what happened. Don't need ammunition for revenge. It's just data from a life I don't live anymore. But I remember the last thing he said on that recording. The thing that used to haunt me. I'll show up. I'll smile. I'll give the speech. And then I'll figure out how to live with this. For a long time, I thought about that phrase, how to live with this, with the knowledge of what he'd done, with the weight of his betrayal. Now I understand it differently, because I figured out how to live with it too, not by forgetting it or forgiving it or pretending it didn't matter, but by acknowledging that it happened, that it hurt, that it changed me, and then choosing to move forward anyway. That's the real revenge, I think, not destroying them, not making them suffer, but refusing to let their worst choices define the rest of my life. They made their choices. They have to live with the consequences, and I made mine. I chose to survive. I chose to rebuild. I chose to trust again, carefully and deliberately. I chose happiness, and that choice, more than any confrontation or consequence I could have engineered, is what saved me. The weight of silence was what nearly broke me. Those 6 weeks between finding the recording and confronting them, carrying the knowledge alone, watching them lie to my face every single day. But in that silence, I found something else too. strength I didn't know I had, clarity about what I deserved, the ability to protect myself while still being fair. The silence taught me that I didn't need to react immediately, dramatically, that I could take my time, gather evidence, make strategic decisions, that I could control my own narrative instead of letting my emotions control me. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. Harder than the confrontations, harder than the divorce, harder than rebuilding my life, but it was also the thing that saved me, because in that silence I learned who I really was, not the man who'd been betrayed, not the victim, not the fool who'd missed the signs. I learned I was someone who could face the worst truth about the people he loved and still choose to move forward with integrity. Someone who could lose everything and still find a way to build something beautiful. Someone who could survive. And in the end, that's the only revenge that ever really matters. Not destroying them, but refusing to let them destroy you. I still remember the exact moment I found that recording, the way my hand shook as I pressed play, the way the world seemed to tilt sideways as I listened to Jake's confession. I remember it because it was the moment everything changed, but it's not the moment that defines me anymore. What defines me now is what came after. The choice to survive, the choice to rebuild, the choice to trust again, even when it terrified me, the choice to forgive myself for not seeing it coming, for believing in people who didn't deserve it, for being human enough to be fooled, and the choice to believe I deserved better, and then to build a life that proved it. That's my story, not the betrayal, not the revenge, but the survival. And if you're reading this, if you've been betrayed by someone you trusted completely, if you're sitting in your own version of that parking lot wondering how you'll ever be okay again, you will. Not today, maybe not for a long time, but you will survive this. And someday you'll build something so beautiful from the wreckage that you'll look back and realize the betrayal wasn't the end of your story, it was just the beginning of a better one. That's what I learned from the weight of silence. And that's what I'm still learning every single day as I hold my daughter and kiss my wife and run my business and live my life. I survived, and so will you.